By the time this goes up, we will be just a couple of days out from Genshin Impact's new gameplay module, Miliastra Wonderland. I consider it more so a module akin to TCG and the Teapot, rather than an in-game mode such as the Abyss or Theater. And yet, I imagine Miliastra Wonderland may get more engagement than any module or in-game mode. I'm calling it now, and if I happen to turn out to be wrong, then so be it, but just calling it ahead of time, I think the UCG will become Genshin Impact. And what I mean by that is, between the story and the in-game modes and all of that, when there's downtime in the game, Miliastra Wonderland will be what the majority of players flock to in order to fill out that time. People will still log on for the story, people will still build their characters, people will still try to complete the in-game modes, but the UCG will be that central hub that the game has always felt like it's been lacking. Not that the other modules and in-game modes don't have their places, but they all lack certain pillars of gameplay philosophy that limit their scopes to more narrow gameplay loops, or limit their potential audiences. TCG is a well thought out strategy card game, but it lacks motor input or mechanical depth. It also lacks a creative element. Teapot, on the other hand, has a creative element, but it lacks an element of strategy. On the flip side, the combat in-game modes of Abyss, Theater, and Stygian have motor input and mechanical depth, but like TCG, they also lack a creative element. And if you really want to go deep, you can add limited events into the mix. Varied, but hit or miss, and not to mention they expire. Do you see what I'm saying? All the modes one can spend time in have strong design pillars, but they lack in certain other aspects. But Miliastra Wonderland is different. Whereas all the other modes and modules lack certain gameplay pillars that could really help solidify them as the game's true central hub, Miliastra Wonderland incorporates almost every gameplay pillar of each other mode into its very structure. It has the strategy you'd look for in a module like TCG. It has the sandbox creativity you'd look for in a module like Teapot, action gameplay you'd play in-game modes to experience, and a wide variety of stages and challenges to choose from, like an endless relay of events. It's that all-encompassing nature of Miliastra Wonderland that makes me feel like it's going to become the central hub for the game. As an old-school gamer, I've seen a lot of games come and I've seen a lot of games fall, but the foundational pillars set here for Miliastra Wonderland are such that I believe that it's setting the stage for a long-time game mode that should stand the test of time, as long as Genshin Impact itself exists. There are 5 pillars in particular which I believe are the most important though, and those are community, competitiveness, broad appeal, customization and creativity, and limitless engagement. And to just go through them and explain why I believe each of them is so important, community, number 1, is big in this mode. Let's just be real for a second, Genshin has never been great at establishing a communal feeling in the game. As far as it is communal, co-op is very bare bones, and it's also very limited as well. I remember though the expectations that people had very early on in the game. People talking about things such as raid bosses and guilds. Yeah, that never happened, did it? But you see, that's where Miliastra Wonderland comes in, because it doesn't just incorporate community, it's literally driven by it. From friend lobbies to playing the stages with other players and raiding stages, yeah, it's all driven by the community. And that's huge because it's one thing to feel connected to your own little world in this game, and that's cool and all, but it's another thing to feel like you're connecting your world to others. It makes the world feel alive and populated. For the same reason you'd like to see NPCs walking around the open world, seeing and interacting with others and their creations breathes life into the game. It gives people others to interact with, something to talk about, something to do, and even a stage to compete on. Which, speaking of, that's number 2, competitiveness. In an interactive respect, Genshin has never been the most competitive game. You compete with yourself more than anything, but others rarely come into the mix. However, this once again changes in Miliastra Wonderland, and in more ways than one. Not only can players play and compete against one another, but creators are trying to make the best game possible as well. They want their stages to get featured, they want their stages to be highly rated. So from gameplay to creator, you have people trying to be the best. And yes, that also includes players. There will be creations from party games to PvP, and players will be able to assign achievements and rankings to their creations. So players will be aiming for the top. As for why all of this is important, people like to be noticed for their achievements, they like to be noticed for their creations, they like to be noticed for their efforts. Whether you're creating or just a player, you have something to aim for here. Granted, it's not quite the same as using your hard-earned and well-built characters against one another, but to be fair, that might be really imbalanced. If there was a way to do competitiveness in this game, this is probably the best way to do it. It keeps things fun and fair for everyone while still being relevant to the overall Genshin Impact world. That's good because it helps to keep Wonderland's broad appeal, which is number 3. This is important because without the broad appeal, it might as well be any other module or endgame mode. Going back to the other modules and endgame modes, the thing about them is they don't all have the same broad appeal. Yes, some people might like the endgame combat modes, but there are plenty that don't. Some might like a game like TCG, but there are plenty who find that kind of thing boring. Others don't like the creative time sink that is a mode like Teapot. Myriad Melodies. Some might like that musical game mode, but some others might just be like, meh. And then when it comes to events, yes, those are just hit or miss with all kinds of players because there's just so many different kinds of events. Miliastra Wonderland, however, stands on a tall pillar of broad appeal because it incorporates all these kinds of things and more. It has classic party games, it has battles, it has PvP, it even has management sims, which is kind of cool because we've had a couple of events that were management sims. But the broad appeal doesn't just stop at the game variety, it also extends to the casual and competitive spectrum. If you want to be a competitive player and try to go for the really high achievements on all kinds of stages, you can do that. But if you just want to kind of chill and, not go so hard, you can do that as well. The appeal also extends itself to both players and creators. Whether you just want to play stages, or you just want to create them, or if you want to do some mix of both, that's up to you as well. These are all elements of broad appeal that makes a mode like Miliastra Wonderland the kind of module that ends up as a game's central hub. When you give players of all kinds and all types a reason to come to the same hub, then you're creating something special, because you're making a casual player and a more competitive type player come to the same hub. You're making a creative player and someone who just wants to play the game come to the same hub. You're making adventure lovers, combat lovers, management sim lovers, all these guys come to the same hub. Any one module or mode or event may hold the population of the fanbase of that mode, but a mode like Miliastra Wonderland could potentially hold the majority of the population of the game. A place to play, a place to create, and a place to customize and be who you want, because that's number 4, customization and creativity. I did just touch on the creativity, but overall, just customization and creativity as a whole is another huge reason this may become the hub for the game. Not only are players creating stages, they're customizing their mannequins. For the first time ever, we're making a character for ourselves, and that's pretty cool. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to use your character everywhere in the game, but that's beside the point. It's the kind of thing that every player can tailor-make for themselves, and it ties right back into that community thing. Everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to feel unique. Now you can. People will want to connect and show others, show friends, the same way that stage creators will want to show their creations. When you have a mode like this where people can create, you get all kinds of cool things. As time goes on and more assets and apparel are added to the game, expect to see really cool things. People love this kind of stuff though, they just can't get enough of making things. Take it from me, someone who was big into the Mario Maker games. People love to create, and you give them a hub, they'll do it. Endlessly. Which brings me to my number 5, Limitless engagement. And this is a big one. All the other pillars are hugely foundational for establishing a hub that people will want to continue to come back to. But this pillar is the one that will keep things fresh, provided they give players adequate assets in order to create truly anything they can think of. You'll have limitless, endless engagement. Now, again, the degree to which this is true does depend on just how many assets they make available, but considering the amount of game modes it looks like you can make, and the assets they do already have, we technically seem like we have a bottomless well of content out there, as long as we have the creators out there actually willing to make it. This is the kind of thing people like to see in a hub. They want something new and fresh all the time, and this will give it to them. But as well, just the fact that it's gonna be there and people are going to be working in it is huge in and of itself. You see, it's not gonna be time limited and time gated like the endgame modes. You're not gonna have to wait for certain resets. You don't have to wait until the next day for a time unlock. It's just gonna be there. You're gonna have limitless engagement, limitless content, as long as you're willing to play whatever's up there. Which should be a lot because there's going to be creators. See how that works? It's going to be a 24/7 content meal and everyone's invited. Whereas the endgame modes and modules and events do have timers and do end, you'll always have something here to do. And for that reason, I do believe people will be flocking here and staying here as the game's hub. These 5 pillars are the reason I believe Miliastra Wonderland could become Genshin Impact. Again, where become Genshin Impact simply means where people flock to between the story and other modes. I'm so ready, dude. I'm gonna be all in this as both a player and a creator. As I said, I was already a creator in Mario Maker. That was one of my favorite games, but yeah, being able to put stuff together again in another game, that's my kind of thing. I like to do that. That may not be you. You may just be interested in playing modes and playing stages, but again, that's the kind of thing that brings players together. That's why this mode has the potential to be a hub mode for the game. But of course, there are some naysayers. There are some that criticized Miliastra Wonderland as being a cop-out mode for Genshin. Basically, hoyoverse putting the burden of making a good game onto the players. To which that I say, come on dude, stop. For a mode like this, having it player generated is endlessly better in my opinion. First of all, that's how we get the limitless engagement. If hoyoverse was going to just make all the stages and all the content for us, well, we'd be severely limited in just how much content we get. They're just one company, but when you put the entire population of the game at work, well hey, you get a massive beautiful thing. And second of all, they're just not going to make the same cool and goofy things that players will. Let's be real. One of the cool things about this kind of thing being user-generated content is the fact that it's user-generated content. And quite frankly, I have ideas I want to try out, so who cares? Yes, that's what a user-generated sandbox is. Players make it. It doesn't necessarily mean a company is being lazy or something. I mean, they could be, but who cares? I like it. If we can make this ourselves, if we can make our own game, if we can make our own community, if we can make our own connections, then it's all for the better anyway. And there are others who say that it's taken a long time to get to this point with something like a UGC, but I think about the fact that, well, we've just had to gather so many assets over time. Think about how big the game has gotten now. Think about how many assets there are in the game, and it may be truly mind-blowing some of the things that we can make at this point. I'd rather them have released it now when we have tons of assets to work with, rather than have released it early and then people get burnt out because they just can't make many things. I kind of understand waiting until this point. Same reason they had to wait so long before they released the Imaginarium Theater. We had to have rosters even big enough for the mode to make sense. You see where I'm going with that? But now that we're here, yeah, UGC. I do think it could become the game's hub, and truthfully, it could take off as its own thing. I already kind of thought that. I was kind of wondering how this just didn't release as its own game, but it is tied to Genshin's world, so there is relevance here. As I said before, I've seen lots of games come and lots of games go, but this is the kind of thing that brings people to a game, even if it gets big enough, that is. Or at the very least, they come for the adventure and stay for the Wonderland. As for me, I've been here, but I am excited for this, and I'm going to be both a player and a creator, like I said. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to go pretty big into the creation thing. I'm not entirely sure. I may be showcasing some of them, but it's even possible that I may start up a side channel or something just for creations. I'm being so for real here, be on the lookout for that. That could happen. Dude, I'd love to do that, but we'll see. As for now though, yeah, look out for Miliastra Wonderland. It's gonna be something. I think it has a lot of potential here. It's going to bring together the entire community into one place. You're gonna have players and creators and, sweats and chill folks, and it's gonna be a really good thing. This is something I think Genshin has really needed, and it has all the pillars, all the correct pillars to really be the game's central. So, yeah, Miliastra Wonderland. I'll see y'all there.